How can your past experiences affect your present? Or put another way, transference is, was, and ever will be. What's transference, and what particularly am I talking about your past experiences affecting the now? Transference is a psychological concept. In more somatic language might be called overcoupling or coupling dynamics in some respects. Whenever we get activated in the present, there can be lots of reasons that happens, and that can be to do with relational pieces in the past. For example, most of us have had experiences with our partners where, sometimes they annoy us and we just feel a bit, and then there are other times when we feel there's a much bigger sort of light the blue touch paper and run, because we really feel a bigger effect somehow than with other ones. Those are a big clue for me, because it's not half and half, but let's say a portion of this that's just something that you've done that's annoyed me or hurt me or upset me. The other part is, what is it layered upon that seems familiar from the past? Yeah, and it may even not be conscious. In fact, it's highly likely to be unconscious. So that could be, for example, if there's a particular tone of voice which your mother used with you, and then your partner uses the same or something similar, it will really activate you. And what that is a transference of what that meant, or perhaps if a certain look or a certain tone of voice in your father was then followed by being hit or something, or explosive rage. If you sense a signal in the current partner, that will then extrapolate that to, this might happen. And then what you will do is you will copy and paste the response that you had from then to now, which is either fear, buckling, freeze, angering, defensive behaviours, whatever it might be. So there's this amplified effect based on the past experience. There can be maternal, paternal, sibling. There can be erotic transference, and all of these things are inevitabilities in a therapeutic process, and actually just in life. It's not that we need trauma necessarily to have these things. These are just part of life, and they're just there. There can also be non-familial transference. So, for example, people might say, well, okay, if we've got an association with a cultural expectation about what a therapist is somebody that's able to understand me and to be able to just know perhaps the emotional feelings that I'm having where I might struggle with them. Well, it's a projection. So that's a subset of transference, is what we call project. So we project expectations onto another person, perhaps which are unrealistic. Or the other case was more like the tone of voice thing, is that we identify, and we can identify with that, or there's a coupling of that. That thing is so familiar, and that sound or that look or even a smell of tobacco smoke actually might create a very pleasant. I had somebody once and she went, I've just got this smell. I went, okay, is that familiar? Let's sit with that as this comes up. She went, it reminds me of my grandmother. She was the most safe place for me. So that can come up as not a conscious thought, but as a somatic experience of senses, smells, sounds, sights, bodily sensations, energetic experiences, however we experience things. So how might we work with that? The first thing is to spot it. And to recognize it. Now, that's the skill of a therapist, perhaps, is to notice what's going on. Or it might be that perhaps there's something that just happens during a session, or maybe as part of the dialogue takes place. There's a sort of, I notice that you just looked away, or something just happened there, and it felt like things went quiet, and you braced a little bit. Let's look at that. And that might lead us into an exploration, and it may not be conscious. We might not discuss it as a somatic practitioner. We might actually work with that bracing pattern or the gaze and sit with it, allow it, give it space. And then when we slow it down and give space to it and explore it and say, what would happen if you leant into that bracing more? Oh, it brings up an image of something. Oh, okay. Aha. And then we get this sort of wisdom that comes out through a slowing of the process. Put simply, if we go back into, let's say, developmental pattern ruptures or trauma, things that happened adaptively when we were growing can sometimes become maladaptive as adults. If we go back to meet that point in time where that adaptation had to happen, and then we get an opportunity to help the body do something different with it at that point. So with my analogies, if you're skiing down a slope and you meet a boulder, that's the point of the, oh, what do I do now? And your nervous system and body has always learned adaptively to go that way. And that's okay, but it might mean that you go through a very bumpy process or go off a cliff. What if, as we slow it down, we meet the boulder and we're able to renegotiate something within the system and train the system differently by saying, what if we could support the system to be able to go around that way, and maybe there's a smoother path down the mountainside. And that really is neuroplasticity. Yeah, there is this whole thing about whether trauma is stored in the body. I mean, that's an interesting topic. But certainly one view is that no, it's not stored within the tissues, and actually what we're doing is we're meeting patterns. We are meeting what the body learned to do with something, with associations. And so if we can learn something, the beauty of being human and being able to learn and grow and neuroplasticity is that we can learn to do that differently, in the same way as if you learn to play something on the piano and you got your fingering wrong, if we slowed it down a bit and we really understood where the pattern was embedded and we learned to do it differently with enough practice, then the new way becomes the normal. And so, transference, our past affects the now, through relationships and through cultural expectations and societal norms. Now, in the therapeutic relationship, then we can sometimes be something upon which the person might project those onto me. So it might be that it feels safe for them to get angry with me in a way that it wasn't safe for them to get angry with another. Or it might be I say something and then they'll go, oh, right, now I've hit something. But they're safe enough to explore that with me. We become, in a way, a bit of a mirror and a safe space to explore the transference in a therapeutic alliance. And the beauty that we have is that because we're not in a traditional relationship sense, there's less entanglement because it sort of doesn't matter in the same way. There's this strange phenomenon that one can actually be more sort of intimate, relationally and vulnerable in a therapeutic alliance than we can with our partners. And that's just the way that it is, because it's not that I don't care, but actually there isn't the same entanglement that means that, you're unlikely to be able to hurt me in the same way, and so I don't need to defend, and there's a different dynamic with which I meet you. So, I think that explains a little bit of transference and how we might work with it.